So the big question is this: how do passionate golfers like you and I develop a stock shot day in and day out? A stock shot that's as reliable as the sun coming up in the morning. That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. Welcome to Stock Shot Secrets. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Stock Shot Secrets. I got my good buddy Jeff Coston, who is in my home state of Washington, on, and Jeff might be the greatest golfer I might have ever known. How many tournaments have you won, Jeff?
Oh, my goodness. It just shows how old I am, man. I've won hundreds, honestly.
Yeah.
In fact, I've been at Simiam with 30 years now, my golf academy.
Yeah.
And the Northwest PGA sent me like a plaque and a picture and all that of the tournaments I've won because I forgot. So I've won, since I've been here, I've won in the Northwest PGA section, I've won 59 majors.
That's incredible. And that's just majors.
Yeah.
So to give a little bit of backstory about Jeff and I. So Jeff and I were connected through our mutual best buddy, Mike Bender, who is basically the godfather and the wizard that connects us all together. And I'm trying to think, Jeff, like how we actually met, if it was actually at the academy or what have you. I don't really remember exactly how we crossed paths, but you've got a very, very interesting story because you're an incredible teacher. You have an incredible heart and just you know what you stand for in life. And then you've been on the Champions Tour. You've played professional golf. You win a ton. So like you're a player, but you're a coach. And I think you've got a very, very cool story to tell. So to kind of kick that off, can you just give the listeners a little bit of, we'll say, the origin story of Jeff, right? Like. Back in the day I was born, right? So I'd love to just hear just your story, really. I'd love to hear that for a few minutes of just kind of how this all came about.
Yeah, basically, I played basketball and golf, and I had scholarships to play college basketball. And I chose to play golf because if you can post numbers, nobody can keep you out of the game. The coach, in basketball, you can control your minutes, but you just post low scores, nobody can control your minutes. So that's been great. Both my boys played high school basketball, college basketball, and they both do basketball for a living. So that's been a huge thing. We talked about Mike Bender. I would never be the player or teacher I am without Mike Bender, Mike Adams, Andy Plummer, Mike Bennett. But you and I met with Bender playing in a Pro-Am in Daytona Beach.
Oh, that's
right. And so that's how we met. So I turned pro in 1977. That's before everybody else here listening has been born, and played every tour but the women's tour. Maybe I should have tried that. I might have done better. I don't know. But
well, unfortunately, now you probably could with the way it works. But
yeah, that's not who I am. But but I played the regular tour, played the one on the Korn Ferry tour, and then played the Champions Tour. And I love golf. I'd blow if I didn't play, and I'd blow if I didn't teach. And met Bender in the early 80s. We were in a playoff together in the Dakotas Tour. And I still tease him about it because we've been doing golf schools at my academy for 28 years. So I say he's going to make a teacher out of me yet. So, I tease him because I won the playoffs. So
you were one up, and he'll never let that down. And now from now on, you just never play him again. No, so how did that after that Dakotas and you met with him and you and that when that took place, how did it turn into? Did Mike start teaching before you did?
Yeah. So what happened is when we're playing the Dakotas, like I played the Dakotas tour for 10 years, man, and it's some of my favorite time. We'd travel in an Airstream travel trailer, and I can remember winning at Fargo, the North Dakota Open. There's so many stories. I may not know that much, but I got lots of stories. So. And Bender and I were always the first guys there and the last guys to leave. And one time we just said, hey, do you want to play a practice round together? And so then we would have contests and we would, play practice rounds together. I introduced him to his wife on a blind date, in fact, and I had to talk her into going. So, so that's a good thing. But it's been a great ride for sure.
Yeah. Did he start were you playing professional golf and he was teaching, meaning you were looking at calling upon Mike? Like, did he start in the teaching realm before you did?
Yes. So we both played the PGA Tour together too. And that was when Mac O'Grady was the guru on the tour. And And Bender would, I started calling Bender Mike Mac Bender because he was hanging out with O'Grady so much.
Yeah.
And so that's been a huge part, as you know, of our teaching philosophy, teaching physics and geometry, not just tips and opinion. And so that's been a huge thing. And so we played the tour together. Then when he lost his tour card, he started teaching. And I was still working away on the tour, and they're in Lake Mary at Timaquan. And so I was living in Orlando. My wife and I, we were in Orlando for like 16 years, but we played the Space Coast Golf Tour and the North Florida Winter Tour, then on and off the tour, like losing our card, getting it back. And we didn't lose it in the mail, but I just didn't make enough money. So
as a player, tell me a little bit, like, how do you I'd love just to hear, because we come from the same tree, the same doctrine, the same thought process and convictions. What is it? How do you articulate the argument as to why players need a stock shot?
Yeah, Tom Watson told me that, and he had a lot of success. He said, Jeff, you have to own a shot shape. Jack Nicklaus said, Jeff, straight is an accident. And so I know the ball curved more than and everything, but it still holds true. If I can start my ball in line and make it curve or take curve out, I think I'm ahead of the game. Because most people don't realize I got to start my ball on line. And I got to control my curve. That's my face. That's my path. And as we know, that we've boiled it down to, you don't have to do 8,000 things. Well, you got to do about 5 or 6 things amazingly. Yes. And then you're ahead of the game.
So let's talk about those 5 or 6 things, those are the convictions that you have. So we believe that we should start. I mean, this is called stock shot secrets, right? So everything I am doing is around this stock shot, right? It is the vehicle in which we are going to play better golf. So on those things, kind of switching a little bit as a teacher, what are those 5 or 6 things that you kind of just mentioned as like the convictions that you go, I feel like if we could really, really get good at this, we are probably really, really ahead of the curve.
Right, for sure. So I would say chapter 1 is aim. Most people, amateurs, members at golf clubs, aim to the right and swing to the left.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a domino effect. Most amateurs have too weak a golf grip, and then they aim too far to the right with their shoulders open. Your arms are hooked to your shoulders, so wherever your shoulders go, your arms go also. So they've set themselves up, strike one for sure. Yep. And then second thing would be path. How do I create the right path? Right. And what is my cause and effect? As you know, most teachers don't understand cause of the effect. Yep. And so it's like, if I aim to the right, I got to swing to the left. Lee Trevino said, Coston, I'd rather aim in the rough and swing in the fairway than aim my body in the fairway and swing in the rough. Right. Yep. And so it's like, so if I'm hitting it over second base, my feet better be at the shortstop. And I better swing to the second baseman or to the right side of the baseball field or the golf course, because when I start to clear, everything goes to the left. So it's like, I got to get my path down right. Yep. And that backswing makes that happen in so many regards, whether it's my hip turn that creates space for my arms to get down, whether it's the depth of my backswing, unless I'm Jim Furyk or Matthew Wolf, where I can loop it and reroute it. But tour players are mutations. And so most amateurs cannot do that. So their backswing sets them up for success. So I better aim good. I better have elements of the backswing, because it has 2 purposes: to accumulate power by turning, folding, coiling, and hinging. And secondly, to put myself in a position to make a straight line beeline for the golf ball.
Yep.
And so then it's like tour players miss greens and they miss fairways, but they don't miss greens and fairways because they miss aim, and their path doesn't change with bad pizza. But it's hard to control that club face or that ping pong paddle or that tennis racket through the hitting zone. And so it's like, man, if that is a millimeter left, man, I missed the green to the left, because whatever's a millimeter at impact is 20 yards, at the green. Yeah. And so if I'm unaware of that path, face, aim, then I'm trouble. And so people come to me and saying they're inconsistent. Well, that is why.
Yep. The Jeff, I've got that. I mean, obviously, we're exactly on the same exact point. I've got, given that, which our listeners have definitely seen, that the alignment and zone pull lesson, and I've been teaching since 2016 and call 2,000 lessons a year, and that's 7 years. So I'm at, call it 14,000 lessons, and to date, I wonder if is the same way. To date, I've had 6 people. I'm still on 2 hands. So I've had 6 people that when I walked them through the alignment and the zone pull, where I had them set up and then I put it on their heels and put it on the toe and then walked out and said, okay, tell me what is straight. I've had 6 people that have actually got that correct.
Understand.
Right? Meaning that I am a psycho for alignment because of the same thing that, and I always I'm always like, hey, is the player over the top because they aim right, or do they aim right because they're over the top? Like, what's the chicken, what's the egg, right? But the fact of the matter is that it really is a pandemic in amateur golfers of alignment. And if they would just first fix their alignment, that's where it breaks my heart, where I go out to the course, and you're probably the same way at your course, to where you walk the range and you're like, man, these guys are like, they're missing work and they're coming out to hit balls. It's 1 o'clock. And it's like, you have your alignment's so bad, you can't even work on your golf swing. So to the basketball analogy, it's always like, what is the point of me working on my release habit if I'm not even aimed at the hoop? Like, if I'm aimed over here, what is the point of working on this? I have to be aimed correctly first. Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Stock Shot Secrets podcast. If you are enjoying it, be sure to like this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can always see when they're coming out. And most importantly, if you would be so kind to be able to share this podcast with other passionate golfers who are trying to get better and build stock shots, because it grows through you sharing it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now back to Stock Shot Secrets. So, I'm 100% agree. So now let's say we've got the player, and we know that they need to have good alignment. They know that we need to have like a good backswing because that sets up the downswing. Yes. We know we have to control path. We know that we need to control face. Where was your epiphany moment, I guess, if you can remember? Like, where did you had your epiphany moment on the use of feedback in training? And what's your opinion on feedback?
Yeah, I know that Bender and I always say, hey, if I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now, right? When I was on the tour. Like, nobody ever talked about that. It was before they had running water and 3-point lines in basketball, I guess. But for sure, before electric cars. But it was just trial and error, right? And so there's more error than trial. And I think a lot of time when I practice, I probably hit more golf balls than any living human being, even Vijay Singh. So, because I'm older. But that being said, it was just, she loves me not, I got it, I don't. And it wasn't the reason why. And so my students, as I'm sure yours, it's like, I set them up with that swing station that forces them to do what I want them to do. Then I take a video of that and they go, that feels so weird. That feels so left. That feels so bent over. That feels so, call it flat. Yeah. Right. And then I show them the video and they go, man, that looks perfect. And that's one reason why people don't get better, because feel is not real, and you cannot confuse comfort with being correct. And so even for me, I'm working on an element of my backswing this year. And so it's like, I keep saying I'm going to get this game yet. They're going to make a teacher out of me yet. So it's like, it has to feel weird in order to make a change. And you have to bend the spring back so far to make a change. And you have to continually do that. And that without a swing station, people don't really get better. The process is so slow. And you could even do it at home, as you well know, without even hitting a golf ball. Right. And so that swing station, I think, is huge, and bending the spring back is huge. And so that helps people get better. And that's what we're in the business for.
I want to share this with you, because I'm not sure if you saw this. I posted everywhere and I talk about it like ad nauseum. But Tiger Woods had one of the greatest quotes that I've ever seen, and I've burned it into my players' brains. And it falls right in line with this, is that, and here's a guy who's basically rebuilt his swing, like 3 or 4 times under 3 or 4 different coaches. And
he amazing.
I know, it's amazing. He says the first thing when any person has to do to get better is they first have to understand what they need to do. After they understand, they need to make it look right.
Yes.
Then it will start to feel right. Then it'll start to perform. Then you can do it in practice. Then you can do it in the course. And then you can be in the tournament. But the amateur golfer has no idea. They don't understand cause and effect. And quite frankly, unfortunately, most teachers don't as well, right? But they don't understand, and then they don't make it look right. They just trace to what you were saying, like, she loves me not. They just try to make it feel good and perform good. And it's like, that's not how you do it. You have to make it look correct. And when it looks correct, we know, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, it's just physics and geometry, right? Like we're not reinventing the wheel. This is just the way God designed physics, right? It is what it is. So, and that's where the feedback makes it actually look correct. And then you just, then you kind of just go to Hogan. It's just like you just pound the dirt until you do it, not till you do it right, but till you can't do it wrong.
That's a great point. I know, and as you mentioned, Hogan or whomever, George Knudson or Mo Norman or whomever, their swing would work in this era, right? It's physics. It's not, oh man, we got the revelation right now. It's like, no, more people do it now, but Hogan's swing would work right now. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what about kind of switching gears a little bit to tournament play, right? So you've won a bazillion tournaments. You've played a bazillion tournaments. Right. So now what advice, like what is it about you that you feel gives you the edge to being so good? And really, obviously, you've got an amazing golf swing, but like more on the mental standpoint, right? Like what are some of your core beliefs and, laws you live by on the mental side when you approach tournament play?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that it's essential because I teach a lot of tournament players. And a lot of times I say, and you might punch me in the face, or a teacher might, how can somebody teach somebody to win if they haven't won themselves? I think it would be very difficult.
100%.
And so I've failed so many times. It's unbelievable. Right. And so I would say this, like on what's now the Korn Ferry Tour, I had the lowest stroke average on the weekend of anybody, but I made 65% of the cuts. And at that time, it was harder than making cuts on the regular tour because there's only 50 guys made the cut then. Yep. So it's like, hey, Jeff, why are you so free on the weekend? Because you have no fear of failure. Jeff, how are you going to trump your fear of failure or fear of, making a bogey or fear of missing a 5-foot putt? Because that's how most people play, in fear. So step one was, hey, if I shoot 5 under the first 36 holes, I'll never have to worry about the cut again. Jeff, how are you going to shoot 5 under? And this is, before you were born probably. And so it's like, okay, if I shoot this 5 under, well, how are you going to do that, Costin? Well, in the first 36 holes, you have 8 par 5s, 4 a round. Well, you could reach 2 of them a day, let's say. And so you have 8 par 5s. If you play those par 5s 5 under, you're 5 under. Hey, Costin, you have 6 wedges a day or a flatted 9 iron. That's my wedge bundle where they can't hide the flag from me. I can attack every one. So if I have 6 of those a day, that's 12. If I play those 4 under, now I'm 9 under par. If I hit it in the middle of the green with a 5 iron on a par 3, and I play the par 3s even par, I'm still 9 under par. If I play longer par 4s like the par 3s, so I'm trying to eliminate mistakes, be assertive, aggressive with a conservative zone on those harder holes, stuffing wedges, attacking par 5s. And if I'm 9 under and make 4 bogeys, I've just shot 5 under. I don't have to fear the cut anymore. So that started my breakdown of golf courses.
Yeah.
And so that helped me immensely. And so then I also say, like, I'd never be who I am without Bob Rotella, David Cook, Deborah Graham, Chuck Hogan, Fred Shoemaker, you name it. I know them all. They all got white jackets for me. You know what I'm saying? And so I think my sports psychology is huge because I've had to live it out with my failures. I got snake bites, broken bones, all the above, and some successes. And so I've had to boil that down to how do I practice properly? How do I create a mindset of freedom? Besides that strategical template, it's like,
right.
Rotella would say, hey, human beings are wired in such a way that golfers would play their best if they simply saw the target and reacted rather than gave themselves a lot of conscious thought. And so I try to do that where the short game is probably 20% technique and 80% art, where maybe the golf swing is 80% technique and 20% art. Right. And so if I have all those trump cards, whether it's my swing station, my wedge bundle, curving my golf ball, using the whole fairway, mastering a shot shape, mastering a start line, mastering, freedom. And I say I can't do it all day, but I could do it for one hole. And I could do it for one hole 18 different times. And so that has helped me immensely, and it's helped my teaching and my students also.
So with your, if you're obviously, you know, a good player and you're even practicing yourself now, and you would, you know, we say we would, and I would agree on the same side. If I knew now what I knew, if I knew when I was 28 what I know now, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this podcast studio talking, right? I'd be out playing. But what is it if you're going to go out and practice, right? Let's just say you go out and you have an hour, right? What's an hour look like for Jeff Coston to go work on his game?
Okay, that's a great question. So I have a lot of pros that come to me and stuff. And so I had a pro who's a friend that comes from one of the premier clubs in the Northwest. They call it Little Augusta, or Augusta of the Northwest. And so I said, I set my week in advance. So if I have an hour, 5 days a week, then that would be easier for me to break it down, because it's like, okay, I'm going to go putt and pitch and work in my station on Monday. I'm going to play on Wednesday in my game. I'm going to work on, you know, my shot shapes and my wedge play on Thursday. You know what I mean? So I break them up in 20-minute increments. And and for most people, bunker play and pitching is an afterthought. But if my bunker play needs to be great, because if I can't get it on that green in 2, I'm going to get it in that green side bunker in 2 on that par 5. And so then I need to be a bunker master. And then if I hit it in a bunker on a par 3, why should I be afraid to make a bogey on that par 3 when I'm attacking a bunker on a par 5? It doesn't make logical sense. Or why is a 480-yard par 4 a really tough hole, but if it was a 480-yard par 5, man, that's an easy hole. I'm going to birdie that hole, right? It's all kind of like how we see things in our mind, and so I can even remember when I was on the tour. You know, Tom Lehman is a close friend of mine. Kenny Perry is a close friend of mine. Bernard Langer is a friend of mine, not as close as those guys, because the other guys I traveled with, and it was like they didn't beat me on Monday or Tuesday playing practice rounds, and so but they kicked my buns on Thursday, Friday, because I gave it too much value, and I was too worried about what people thought. I was too worried about failure, and I didn't know how to overcome that, which those elements I do now.
Yeah, you're preaching. That's. I feel like I'm listening to myself talk. So with that fear, we talk about fear of failing and like being able to fail forward and being able to play with not the, you know, and that being a massive deterrent to being able to like free yourself out. For you, how was that established, and like what's that revolving around, and how do you accomplish that? Because I think for especially for the tournament player who this podcast might be a little bit more geared towards, and obviously the recreational amateur, that's hard for anybody, right? So like, how did you find that?
Right, I think that one thing was this. I remember in 1988, I was hitting balls on a Wednesday afternoon before the tournament started, and it was at Williamsburg, Virginia, the Anheuser-Busch Classic. And I'm hitting balls on the end of the range, and Tom Watson and Lanny Watkins walk up to me and say, "How do you ever shoot over par, man? We're watching you hit golf balls, and you hit it great." And so it's like, and Lanny Watkins doesn't give compliments easily. And Tom Watson was always very nice to me, as was Hale Irwin and George Archer and so many guys, right?
Yeah.
And so then I went out the next day and teed it up, and I shot 75. 4 over par. It was par 71. And I was in last place. I was in 156th place. And I called Chuck Hogan on the phone, and I'm crying on the phone saying, "Lanny Watkins says I'm good and I'm going to miss another cut." and so Chuck Hogan said, "Jeff, everybody knows you're great, but you just need to give yourself permission to be great. And you need to walk around Busch Gardens tonight and say, 'Jeff, it's okay to be who you were on the range.'" And so I did that, because I would do anything, man. And so the next day I stood up on the first hole, "Jeff, it's okay to work and cut it off that bunker right now, just like the range." And so I shot 67 that day and made the cut on the nose. And then I did it next day. It's called permission. "Jeff, it's okay to hit this 5 and just be who you are on the range." I shot 65 the next day. And then the last day I shot 67. So I went from 156th to 7th, my best tournament on the PGA Tour. And so from permission and mindset and speak the shot, right? And so I stand in my think box and I go, "Jeff, It's okay to stuff this, Costin. You could start at that tree and you hit that fall or cut to the right, one hop this baby in the hole. And so speaking the shot creates the image, and our brain doesn't know the difference between vividly imagined things and reality. And so I continually do that. I remember my first year on the tour, I was 6 under after the first 10 holes, the first tournament, my first year on the tour, leading the tournament, thinking, man, it's not supposed to be this easy. This is a PGA Tour. But the truth was, that's a glimpse of my potential. And most people don't realize their potential. My third tournament on the tour, I had this guy caddying for me. He's a father figure to me. I was 20-something. He's 40-something, been out there. And he would say, Jeff, start at that lady in the red and curve it into the flag, just like on the range. And I'd stuff it. And I shot, I remember 71, 71, 70. And then I got paired with Jack Nicklaus the last day. And I go, man, I don't want to put that big name of a player. So there were 15 deep. It was in Fort Lauderdale. It was the Honda Classic. I couldn't even get to the tee. They thought I was a caddy. And so so I'm walking through all these people, and they go, so many time Masters champion, British Open champion, PGA champion, US Open champion, Jack Nicklaus, and everybody goes crazy. They go from Kent, Washington, Jeff Coston, everybody left. And so my caddy goes, we're going to beat this old man today. And he just spoke the shot to me. I don't know if he knew what he was doing. I certainly didn't know what he was doing. And I shot 71 that day. Nicklaus shot 73. So I beat Nicklaus every time I played with him. So, but speaking the shot, giving yourself permission and creating that. And this is very significant also. If everybody watched Inside the Actor's Studio with Robin Williams, the guy was hilarious. And I was working out when I was watching it years ago. And so this guy's interviewing, he goes, hey, you were a street comedian. And then you did Mork and Mindy. He goes, yeah, when I did Mork and Mindy, it wasn't even acting. That's just who I am. And he goes, yeah, but then you did Dead Poet Society and Good Will Hunting. Those are amazing dramas. How do you do that? And he goes, I create a moment for the moment. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, I create a moment in front of the mirror for the moment in front of the camera, and they're no different. And I go, that's what I do. Not when I was on the tour, but now. I create a moment on the range for a moment on the golf course. They're no different. People go, well, hey, man, I feel pressure on the golf course. I go, this is golf, man. This 7-iron is 160 yards. It's a 7-iron, 160 yards. You get to put the flag wherever you want. You get to create that moment on the range for the moment on the golf course. They're no different.
Oh, man, so good.
That's so essential. But most people go, like, as you are well aware, when they hit a great shot, I go, that was an amazing shot. And they go, yeah, but I pushed it. And they're 15 feet from the hole of the 7-iron. So they never give themselves credit. And so they're always, I'm trying to build my people up. I'm trying to build my grandkids up. I'm trying to build my own subconscious up. We're going, hey, Jeff, you're a bad dude. You're a BMW ultimate driving machine, man. You're a wedge master. You're a bunker master. And I got a dream board in my workout room right here. I've already set my goals for 2025. But if I talk to my grandkids, like most people talk to themselves on the golf course, my grandkids wouldn't like me. You know what I'm saying? Right.
It's interesting how you say that. I mean, well, two stories to kind of piggyback on that. And I won't go into it because I've talked about it in another episode, but Stan Utley, I remember talking with Stan, and Stan's a good friend of mine, and he was getting ready to go play at the BMW Championship. This is probably like a decade ago. And he showed up to TVC Scottsdale at the back of the range, and I'm back there hitting balls with Tom Lehman and Kevin Streelman. And we're like, Stan, like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, because, he's not normally practicing a lot at this time, right? Like, he's teaching. And he goes, oh, I got a tournament coming up. I go, oh, what is it? And he's like, the BMW. I go, Stan, isn't that on Thursday? And it's Tuesday, and it's in North Carolina. He's like, it's fine. Like, yardage is yardage. Right? To the whole point of like 165 yards is 165 yards. So there's something to it. And we have to the other point of like self-talk. Yes. That is probably one of the greatest assets that someone can have. And is the fact that, and we kind of have like a running joke at the golf room because my golf room is filled with really good players who are teachers too, is we have a running joke that like if I'm doing a playing lesson, John or Jeff, and I'm saying it, and I'm like, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit this little pitch shot, and we're gonna hit it this trajectory, and it's gonna land here, and then you're gonna see how it's gonna kind of do it. The amount of shots that I hole out in lessons is absurd, and the reason is it's not because I'm a special talent. It's because of the fact that I've made that picture so vivid, and I've talked it out with such detail that I then am just Now I just have to go do it, and that's almost not the easy part, but like I've already manufactured it. And there's so much, like when I was talking before we got on this podcast, just when we were talking about the U.S. Open, when I was at the U.S. Open, I was literally nearly talking myself through the shot as if there was a caddy. So for my think box, like our system for choosing a shot is how's my lie, where do I want to land it, what loft or trajectory, and what club. So I'd be like, okay, look, Kyle, like how's your lie? And I'm like, pretty good. I'm on a tee box. Okay, like where do you want to land it, right? So when you're picturing all of that stuff and you make it so real,
yes,
it just helps, because now it's like you just got one mission, one purpose, and there's not a, I think I'm going to try to maybe hopefully do this. It's this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit it at the woman in the red dress and curve it off to the left and one hop in and put it in the right front corner of the pin, right? So that's amazing. So with all of this said and talking about grandkids, right? Like, what is your ultimate hope as like for you as a player and all this stuff? What is your ultimate stamp that you want to have as the legacy of Jeff, right? Like looking back after all the time that you're with all of the stories and all of the wins and all of the players, what is like the one thing that you're hoping where you go, when people think of Jeff, they think of this?
Yeah, that's very kind. It's really interesting because I have these things I call my Monday money game, where it's like sparring for a golf tournament. And so I teach a lot of kids. And so on my Monday money game, so it's like pros I teach, maybe some college players, and it's sparring for the championship bout. And so I've been doing that for 30 years. And so the last 2 weeks ago, I had a kid that I've taught him since he's 13. Now he's 32, and he still hangs out with me. And I got him in the PGA, and he teaches golf now. I had a kid that I taught since he's 13, teaches golf in Florida, Zach Shriver. He comes yearly to see his family and come and see me. We played this last week on my Monday money game. He now teaches golf in Florida. And so I have so many people, they caddy for me. They're married now, and they caddy for me, and they play, and they come to me for golf lessons. And so I looked at those guys as they were paying me the money because I kicked their buns. And so, and I said, you are my legacy. And I said it in tears. I could start bawling right now because they are my legacy in golf and in life. You know what I mean? And I get texts from them saying, hey, I just finished 10th in a golf tournament. Hey, thank you for giving me a job in golf, right? Or whatever. And so that's been, that's been huge to me. And so,
and I think that's what's so cool is that you've got like Mike and like, well, you could almost say like Mac to teach Mike, but then Mike took Mac's stuff, but like there's also just parts of Mike, right, that he's brought to it.
Right on.
And then you've got like you and Mike as this coaching tree. And then underneath that, like you've got me and like Ben Pelicani and like us doing this stuff. And then we're transferring it down. And that's what's been so cool is that there's this whole doctrine tree philosophy that we're going, that we're just extending it through time. And at the same time, it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. It's just physics and geometry, right? We're just the messengers. So, but I mean, I literally like, there's so many stories we could probably sit on here for hours, but I know your time is precious, so I appreciate it. But if people do want to get more information just, on you or maybe some of golf school or how would you like them best to see more of Jeff and some of the stories and just have you a part of their life?
Yeah. So I have a website, just jeffcoston.com. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. And I hang out in Phoenix January, February, and March. So that people come from all over, mainly for the weather, maybe a little bit for me. And so they come and hang out for those few months. And so, and then I've been at Semiemo, like I said, 30 years since I was 10. And so Bender and I do schools up at my place.
That's awesome.
In July. So he's like my brother. And so, so it's a privilege. So
well, hopefully one day, maybe all three of us can have a little sparring match and see who can take each other's money.
I would like that. I would like that.
Also,
I tell these guys, I don't take Venmo, man. I take cash. They go, I don't carry cash. Well, then you better go by the bank or ask your mommy. You know what I mean?
All right, Mr. Jeff. Well, thank you so much for your time, buddy. I appreciate you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Way to go.
Okay. Take care. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Stock Shot Secrets. Now, as a listener of Stock Shot Secrets, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get better. So if you were to go to stockshotclub.com, I'm going to give you 7 days free access where you can send us your video and we will give you personalized individual attention as to what you need to do so that you can start building stock shots. So just go to stockshotclub.com and register there. We'll give you 7 days free where you can try it. And then if we like it, you can stay inside the Stock Shot Club where we can become your coach and walk with you for your entire journey. Thank you so much. And be sure to go visit stockshotclub.com.